Welcome back to the Contrarians. Today we're going over Ted Nugent, and Martin here has a rather contrarian favorite album. And what's that?
We're going to go with State of Shock, 1979.
Oh my! I'm in a state of shock.
Yeah, this is a little bit of an odd one. Well, that's what the whole show's about. This is our 5th episode, I believe, at this point. But yeah, so what we do is we kind of look at all the bands between the three of us and figure out what is an odd choice. I mean, we aren't always contrarians, but on the show we are always contrarians. So we look for the choice where, you know, our favorite album, you know, truly, maybe it's a bit of a tie or whatever, but it truly is an album we can argue as our favorite album by a band that is kind of a weird choice. So yeah, this time we're doing Ted Nugent, and as Nick mentioned, we're going with State of Shock. Here it is. Here's my signed copy by Ted and Charlie. This is my Ted Nugent book, which is available from my site, martinpopoff.com. There's the first album, which I believe Nick is going to bring up as pretty much being the one that most people like. But so yeah, State of Shock. I've always really liked this album for a number of reasons. I mean, I really like this era of Ted. I also like Scream Dream quite a lot, which is another weird choice because it's got some goofy songs on it. But one of the things with the Ted albums is there are kind of some flaws here and there. I mean, you know, almost nobody likes the 80s albums. I don't like Spirit of the Wild. I happen to really love, if you want to be really contrarian about things, I happen to really love Love Grenade, Crave Man, Shut Up and Jam. I think Ted's last 3 albums are all great. And then, you know, Free For All is definitely a favorite as well. But what I really like about State of Shock is, first of all, it's got 3 of my favorite Ted Nugent songs on it, in Paralyzed, Snake Charmer, and Saddle Sore. Nobody ever talks about Saddle Sore. Great song, but Paralyzed is incredible. It's probably my favorite Ted Nugent song. It's got a couple of Duff things on there, and I Want to Tell You, and I think it's Alone. So the 2 mellow ones are 2 most poppy ones. And then it's got this whole second little level that I always found kind of like greasy and stonesy. The title track, for example, they just kind of like slog around. Charlie is a good kind of like bluesy, soulful vocalist. Obviously, Derek St. Holmes is as well, but I think Charlie does a great job on it. I mean, the one thing people do point out is the production is not so great on it. But I find the production is better than, you know, ironically, the Tom Werman albums. Tom's a great producer, but I found what he did on Cat Scratch Fever, Weekend Warriors as a little bit thin. So on this one doesn't have quite the thinness, but it still has the murky reverbness and a little bit of a stodginess from the drum performance. But yeah, other than that, I can say more, but I should turn things over to you. What do you have to say about this one?
Well, I can certainly see everything you're saying about that, but maybe taking it from a less a sonic perspective and more an influence perspective, you can't really argue against the fact that the Ted Nugent eponymous album,
yeah,
and, you know, like, let's get specific, Stranglehold,
yeah,
is really how many guitarists over how many decades has
exactly.
that one opening riff just influenced. I mean, you can trace.
It's true. That is his most sort of respected, famous song. You know, somewhat besides Cat Scratch Fever. But when it comes to respect, it's Stranglehold. But Stormtroopin's on that.
It's another classic.
Just What the Doctor Ordered. Hey Baby. You know, Derek's kind of a soulful song in that. It was a great album, and that was a great situation with Ted coming out of almost like 2, even 3 different phases of his band with Amboy Dukes to come out with this. It was a huge hit right away. I remember my first major concert I ever went to was on the Free For All tour. It was Ted Nugent, Rex, and Bebop Deluxe. Rex Smith's doing like flips on the stage and stuff. It's amazing. Over in my other room in my office here, I've got the bass drum head from Rex. Mike Ratty, the drummer, kindly sent it up to me. It's mounted on my wall from that show. But yeah, I mean, Free For All, I have definitely fond memories of that. But I do find Cat Scratch Fever, which is the other one people would point out, Weekend Warriors, definitely a little almost distractingly thin on the production. But you're right, the Ted Nugent album sold well too. I believe you have some stats on how these albums did.
Yeah. So specifically with State of Shock, it's highly successful by most standards. But for Ted's history up to that point, discounting Amboy Dukes, of course, you know, it's only certified gold, and it's his first solo album not to be certified platinum, and that kind of starts a downward trend in sales, and obviously, you know, at the Contrarians, we don't think that sales equals quality, for sure, but it's definitely an indicator of his own fan base starting to drift away from him, because I think a lot of people perceive him starting to drift away from his sound.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how huge Ted was. People tend to forget this, but yeah, platinum and double platinum for Ted Nugent, Free for All, Cat Scratch, Weekend Warriors, Double Live Gonzo, and then this one goes gold. You know, he's having some troubles. There's always the notorious changing of band members in and out. He's going through a divorce at this time, so he's got a lot of distractions. You know, 1979 is a very weird year where I know we addressed this with the Blue Oyster Cult Mirrors episode, but every hard rock act seemed to be kind of finding themselves not knowing what to do, going poppy. You know, punk has happened, skinny tie new wave has happened. It was a recessionary year, I believe, in America as a whole, but definitely in the record industry. But Ted, you know, I love the fact that he makes an album just as heavy as all the other ones. He does not let up on being a hard rockin' dude. Scream Dream does the same thing. So yeah, you're right. So we go gold, Scream Dream goes gold, and then Disaster. I mean, all those records in the 80s are not very good, and they don't certify at all. So this is the end of a golden era. I also love Ted's look at this time. I mean, that is my favorite picture, the one on my book cover. I just love that shot of Ted. That's his hairy, you know, beard, massive beard and mustache shot. But and State of Shock is a great album cover. But look at this one too. Isn't that a cool shot of Ted? So yeah, it was definitely an interesting era for Ted, and I think they rocked pretty hard. And yes, Scream Dream's got some incredibly heavy songs on it. But again, the production on all the Ted albums, I don't know what it is. Even across different producers, they go for just this super polite, restrained drum and bass performance. And I don't know, it's almost like it was one of these where the excuse is that maybe it sounds good on radio or something. It's kind of odd the way they do this. But I find this album to actually be State of Shock, to have at least a kind of a muscular underflow to it. It's murky, it's reverby, like I say, it's watery. But I think it's much better production than the previous two.
See, what I would say is that leaving that extra room there in the sound, it gave way for that guitar sound, and that kind of made him a legend.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's a very good point, because the guitar does not cut through on State of Shock very much, but I do love the songs. I love the fact that there's these heavy songs like Snake Charmer, and like I said, Paralyzed. You can't beat Paralyzed. That's just his best song ever, as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, I think I see where you're coming from. You're saying that it might not be a guitar classic like Stranglehold or even the next album, Cat Scratch Fever, but you think the songwriting in general is stronger.
Yeah, and I love the way the whole thing just stands together as this greasy, stonesy kind of record. Even though there's the heavy songs and a couple of ballads, it all just seems like it's well sequenced. There's nothing that stands out in a big way. That's the big problem with Scream Dream, which is also up there in my favorites. But it has some radically different sounding things on it, some really jokey things. This doesn't really have any joking things on it. I mean, that one's got Terminus Eldorado, Wango Tango, I believe. Yeah, this song. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So it's got, and then it's got some super metal tunes, but again with another really weird production sound. But no, I gotta say also that again, to reiterate, please, I mean, if you're at all inclined to listen to Ted, and a lot of people aren't these days, that's for sure. But I think Crave Man, Love Grenade, and Shut Up and Jam are. I could almost stand up here as a contrarian and pick any one of those as my favorite, which is complete blasphemy, I'm sure. There's so few bands of the old guard that I would come out and say, or anybody would come out and say, their last three albums are that great, up into the 60s. But I just think they're just molten. They're all heavy, especially Crave Man and Love Grenade. But I think State of Shock and Scream Dream basically constitute the end of the golden era for Ted.
What do you have you ever heard of Damnocracy, the reality show band he was in?
Yeah, I forgot all about that. Yeah, he's done a lot of things over the years, and then the other thing that people forget is when they think he went away. I mean, he did those two Dan Yankees albums too, and they did great. I think one of them is maybe even double platinum, and one of them is gold, something like that. But that wasn't that great a band either. That was kind of like a super corporate hair bandy sounding thing. And then I think Spirit of the Wild is horrible. I don't like that either. So, and I say this to Ted, to his face. I mean, I basically, although I'm a little more polite about it because I'm still a little bit scared of Ted when I interview him. But what I do. Why I don't feel scared to interview Ted, in terms of like getting into how much I like these albums, is it's almost like because I love the last 3 albums so much, I feel that buys me some poetic license to tell him all his 80s albums are crap. Because I really don't like. I mean, I can get a little bit of enjoyment and value out of Little Miss Dangerous, but not the Nugent album and what the other one's called. Anyways. Penetrator and those. Little Miss Dangerous is probably the best one out of all those. But and like I said, I hate Spirit of the Wild. I mean, it's completely crap, and I don't like Dan Yankees. But love the last 3. So there you go.
I like the album cover on Little Miss Dangerous.
Oh yeah, right.
Speaking of album covers, something I feel could illustrate a counterpoint against State of Shock is if we compare these. Do you not get the feeling, looking at the writing and the pose and everything, that he's trying to, even with the lightning, he's trying to reinvigorate and recapture an older, more natural.
Yeah, it is funny how similar those album covers are. That's for sure. But I think it's a great album cover, and the back is classic too. Look at that, eh? With the the I don't even know what you call these things, wingtips. These crazy shoes here, but just a great back cover as well. So yeah. Very cool. Very cool.
So I got a couple other reviews here to go over, a couple quotes. AllMusic gave the album a 3 out of 10 review, and they specifically stated that the album suffered because of its production. Tom Werner, who previously produced Nugent solo albums, was replaced by drummer Cliff Davies. So you said that the production is what you like, and you did kind of talk about how it was maybe a bit muddled. Yeah, and the guitar doesn't come through about.
He's right about the low grade in some respect because it did not get reviewed that great, and I almost feel again it's because by 1979 people were just getting. It's almost like the end of hair metal when people were just getting impatient with stuff and everything seemed to be getting bad reviews, but. So without Tom Werman there, the sound changes, and it being produced by Cliff is pretty interesting. I mean, he is the drummer. He's kind of a multi-instrumentalist guy. He was kind of a good secret weapon for the band. But yeah, you did mention the production, and it is interesting that the production is turned over to Cliff Davies. I mean, that's symptomatic of Ted's problems with personnel. I mean, here he has his drummer producing the album now, and it's co-produced by Lou Futterman, who doesn't produce anything. He's just like the manager, right? So you have the drummer who's kind of doing a controversial job already of doing the drumming. So essentially this is a self-produced album by one of Ted's employees in the band because really, I mean, it's Ted's band. So it's not surprising that the production is not great, but like I say, I mean, I almost find less complaints about it than I do with the previous 2. I think Free For All is produced fine, and the debut's pretty darn good too. But yeah, this one's a little murky, but still, I think Cliff does an okay job in it's almost like in getting a cool atmosphere to the record.
So I just want to get your opinion on a couple of other opinions that were given about this album. AllMusic gave the album a 3 out of 10 review, and Ultimate Classic Rock gave it a mixed review. To quote, offered decidedly mixed and unfamiliar results, and that the electrical charge promised by State of Shock was, at best, delivered via alternating, not direct current. I like the wordplay.
Well, it's true. I mean, it does, as we talked about earlier, and you mentioned, being a guitar guy yourself, you're cognizant of this stuff. I mean, the guitars do not cut through on the record in a big way. So it definitely, you're right. I mean, Ed's right, who wrote that review. He's a buddy of mine. He's right in a sense that it's not that electric and shocking an album, but I still do love it. And another point I wanted to make, when he mentions the results, I mean, I personally find Bite Down Hard, It Don't Matter, Satisfied, and State of Shock to be so similar to each other in that cool, Stonesy, kind of sloggy vibe. They don't really take off. They're not super fast or anything, and they've got kind of even a bit of a tribalness to them. But I do find those to be almost like a concept album of songs on this record that give it that really Stonesy, bluesy vibe that you know, Ted always talks about that he gets from the greats of rock and roll from the 50s and all that. So yeah, I mean, now that I think about it, I mean, this is almost one album where all that, when Ted goes on a rant about all the you know, all the greats that infused, you know, what he did and, you know, to make this great Detroit rock. This is where you actually get that bluesy end of things. So you've got that bluesy, cool suite of songs. You've got the 3 super awesome rockers, and you got the 2 ballads, which I don't care for, and it makes for a very solid Ted album. So there you have it. There's our arguments for and against State of Shock as the greatest Ted Nugent album. One thing we're going to start doing is we are going to start reacting to your own YouTube comments, and we're going to post those as separate videos. So stay tuned and look for that soon.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, and make sure to ring the bell so you get notifications for our